I love this game. I love the game in terms of the result for World Rugby, for Argentina Rugby. I love the result for South Africa because also Rassie, I've got to applaud the guy once again because with all those changes, he did exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to find out how those players respond under pressure against a really good team, and he knows Argentina's a really good team. So I applaud Rassie. I wish Razor Robertson would learn from Rassie and look at what he's doing, because even though South Africa lost yesterday, Rassie has got a lot of answers to a lot of questions. There might have been questions over Mani Lebok. Well, he's got an answer now. There might have been questions over Salman Morat. Well, he's got an answer now. There might have been questions over Ruan Norkia. Well, he's got an answer now. All these things that came out of the game, I think it's brilliant for South Africa as they move forward. Argentina versus South Africa, round 5 of this year's Rugby Championship, and boy, what a game it was. Let's get into it. Going to give you my review in this video. G'day everyone, welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mark. I'm a retired Kiwi bloke. I'm a huge rugby fan and I live here in beautiful Mexico. Okay, let's talk about this great game that was played yesterday between Argentina and South Africa, round 5 of this year's Rugby Championship competition in Santiago del Estero. And boy, was it humid. And they say here in Mexico, I think the translation is something like humidity is a poor man's altitude. So there you go, take out of that. We had a very humid day yesterday and a very hot temperature in Santiago del Estero. Before the game got underway yesterday, we were about to celebrate 2 big milestones in the game for 2 players. Santiago Carreras for Argentina was celebrating his 50th cap for the Los Pumas, and Eben Etzebeth was drawing equal with Victor Matefield on 127 caps for the Springboks. And if he plays next week in Nelspruit, then he will become the most capped Springbok in history. That's a huge milestone for Eben Etzebeth, and of course he's a legend of the game, and we did see him come on yesterday to play a role in that game. Okay, let's talk about the game, and boy, I don't know where to start. This one had a little bit of everything, didn't it? And it reminded me a little bit in the beginning about the All Blacks and Australia game, wasn't it? Because the Springboks got off to a very similar start to what the All Blacks did yesterday against Australia. From the get-go, they went at it and they were just opening up Argentina at will. They had all the territory, they had all the possession, and quite frankly, they made the Argentinian defence look pretty slack on occasions. And we saw 2 quick tries from the Springboks, one to Rassie to open up the scoring, and their second one to Jesse Kriel. And it was already 14-0 after a few minutes of the game, and then Andre Pollard came in and got a penalty kick to put the Springboks out to 17-0. Just like the All Blacks game, we probably thought at that stage at 17-0 after just 13 minutes that South Africa are going to run away with this. They just look like they could open up Argentina at will. But there's something about this Argentinian team, isn't it? They just don't lie down anymore like they used to. And they've got a real fighting spirit. So it didn't surprise me a couple of minutes later in the game, around about the 15th or 16th minute mark, when Mateo Carreras finished off a fantastic move by the Pumas down the left-hand side of the field and went in and scored their first try. And I think that was like a little bit of a settler for Argentina. It took the nerves off a little bit, gave them an opportunity to put points on the scoreboard, but more importantly, it stopped the Springboks' run of points, didn't it? And it got Argentina going and also brought the crowd into the game. So after 17 minutes, it was 17 points to 7 in favour of the Springboks. Now, before we get any deeper into this video, I just want to say this today, because I'm already anticipating what I'm going to be reading in the comments from South African viewers today. I absolutely 100% support what Rassie did in terms of the changes that he made for this team to travel to Argentina. And if you've been watching any of my videos this year in terms of the Rugby Championship, you'll be hearing me saying a lot about experimenting with new players. We are in that cycle, the World Cup cycle now, where it's an opportunity for all of the coaches to experiment to find out who's going to be the best players for their best squad. And that's exactly what Rassie has been doing a fantastic job at. And I was pleased to see all the changes that he made to the Springboks team. I also said in my pre-game video how strong I thought the Springboks team is, and we've got to stop talking about B teams, C teams and all the rest of it, because the Springboks have got that wealth of depth and they can go up against any team in the rugby world. I think what we've got to become a little bit used to is sometimes our teams are going to lose because of this experimenting process. And some of the coaches are not prepared to go through that by the look of it. And I'm talking about Razor Robertson for one. We're not seeing him make some of the changes in the pivotal positions that I think that he needs to do, and a lot of you have been commenting about as well. But Rassie is doing that, and I think it's a fantastic thing. Win, draw or lose, I think it's the way to go, and it's going to build extraordinary depth for the Springboks as they head towards 2027. Now, as a neutral in this game, I was watching and listening to the Super Sport commentary, and it was very interesting to hear as the game went on, the mood of the commentators and some of the vocabulary they were using throughout this game. They were very buoyant in the beginning when South Africa were running in a few tries, and they were really getting their tails up and thinking that South Africa were really going to make a meal of this one and put it all over Argentina. But when Argentina started coming back into the game, Shimmy in particular got a little bit more coy in his comments in the commentary box, and it was quite interesting to hear. But one of the big things that happened in the game also was around the 17th minute when we saw Arendse get a yellow card, and he went off for South Africa. We've talked about it in many of my previous videos about discipline for all of the teams, not just for South Africa, but South Africa seems to be having a problem pretty much like the All Blacks are in terms of getting a player sent off in most of their games. So Arendse was off in the 17th minute. Would it have an impact on this game? Well, Argentina were just starting to get back into it at that stage, I thought. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happened in the next 10 minutes while he was off the field. I'd spoken before the game about how important I thought Albanoz at number 10 for Argentina was going to be in this game. And a couple of things happened around that time when the yellow card came for Arendse. And the first thing was the penalty kick that he took as a result of that yellow card. He missed that one. And I was starting to wonder whether how pivotal his kicking for goal would be in this particular game. Very difficult conditions to kick under a lot of humidity, greasy ball, and also very, very hot. So on a lot of occasions when the kickers came to take their kick yesterday, they were pretty tired and they had to really get themselves together. So it was interesting to see what the percentage of goal kicking was going to be in this game. And then 2 minutes after that missed kick, he had a bad general kick and play which got charged down. So the pressure was on Albanoz early in this game. And obviously the Springboks had targeted him. They saw him as a key man for the Los Pumas in the game. But we were only 4 minutes into the time when Arendse was off the field, and the Argentinians put together once again a fantastic play down the left-hand side of the field. And of course that's where Arendse would have been defending. He wasn't. So there was an overlap for Argentina. They really made it count against the Springboks. And we saw Pablo Matera finish off a great move. He went in to score the try for Argentina, and they were really back into this game now. And you could tell with the crowd erupting within the stadium that they were really getting behind their team, and it had really stopped the flow of points from the Springboks. It was an interesting turnaround in this game, and Argentina were really, really into it. Now, we started off seeing the scrums being dominated by South Africa in this game, and there was probably no surprise in that. But as the game went on, things got a little bit closer, and the referee was having a little bit of trouble setting the scrums, and we were getting quite lengthy breaks during the scrum process as well. But I was thinking that Argentina was slowly getting back into this from a scrummaging point of view, and they ended up getting a couple of free kicks from the scrum as well. So that was really interesting to see. And I said before the game that the front row for Argentina were going to have to do some really big things up against this mighty pack from the Springboks. And of course, with Malcolm Marx Oxen chair in the front row, there was going to be always a huge contest from the Springboks, and that's what we saw. But before Arendse came back on, we saw another try to Argentina, and this time it was Sclavi himself. I said in my pre-game video to watch out for this guy. He's very good in general play, and he didn't let us down again. He went in off the back of a very clever play by Argentina. One of their players was almost over the sideline, but he got the ball back into general play. Sclavi was there, picked the ball up and went over for a try. It was a fantastic try to Argentina, and they really made it count when South Africa were down to 14 men in this game. And I believe that's something that Rassie's going to have a really close look at, because discipline is letting the Springboks down. There's no doubt about it at all. Now, Argentina were on a really big roll, so that was a good try, but a few minutes later they got another one when Albanoz went over, and he was starting to really have an impact on this game as well. After he'd missed that penalty kick, and then he had missed that general kick and play, he seemed to take more time and he was running the ball. He made a couple of good darting runs where he got through the Springboks' first line of defence. I'm really impressed with Albinos. I think he's one of the best 10s in world rugby at the moment, and he's getting stronger in every game. Very, very impressed with the guy. So when he scored that try, it really opened up the Springboks, and it gave Argentina, I think, a true belief that they could be in to win this game as they were heading towards a half time. I thought it was important for the Springboks to bounce back from this. They'd let in a few tries, and Argentina had taken away all the momentum that the Springboks had in the first 13 minutes of the game. And that's exactly what they did just right on half-time when Cobus Reinhardt went over for a good try for the Springboks. He caught the Argentinian defence napping. No one put a hand on him, and it was a bit of a soft try, in fact, for Reinhardt as he darted towards the line, put the ball down in the left-hand corner of the field, and there seemed to be no Argentinian players interested at all in actually tackling him. Maybe they'd already switched off for half-time, and Springboks had really caught Argentina out on this occasion. Andre Pollard showed he was human, and he missed the conversion of that try by Reinhardt, and we went to half-time with the Argentinian Los Pumas in the lead by 26 points to 22. It was an absolutely frantic first half of rugby. It had a bit of everything. The Springboks came out of the gate like I probably haven't seen them for quite some time. They were superb in the first 13 or 14 minutes, but Argentina then owned the rest of the most of the next part of the half, and they just came back with some really brilliant tries. They were showing they wanted to run the ball. They got through the South African defence, particularly when they were down to 14 men, so they made sure that counted, which is absolutely paramount. How many times do we see teams up against 14 or 13 men and they don't score enough points during that period? Well, Argentina were not guilty of that. They were able to score 2 tries when Ardens was off the field, so that was really good for them. So as we went to half-time, there was a few things that I was thinking. The first of all, I think Rassie wouldn't have been too upset. I think he would have been upset with a little bit of lackadaisical defence from the Springboks. They weren't dominating in the scrums all of the time, and the breakdowns were 50-50 as well, because the Argentinians were doing some great work. We saw Marcos Crema, Pablo Matera and Oviedo doing some fantastic work in the breakdown, winning the ball for the Argentinians and putting them off on the front foot. And Albinos was really starting to control the game in the last 20 minutes of the first half, and as I said before, I was super impressed with him. So I think Felipe Contepone's job at half-time would have been to keep the Argentinians up in that momentum, and they probably would have wished they didn't have half-time to sit out, because it would have given the Springboks time to regroup, and I think that would have been a good thing for Rassie. So Rassie probably would have said, look, we've got the bomb squad coming on, we want to slow things down, we want to go from set piece to set piece, we want Andre Pollard again to control the game as he was in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game, and bring back in that structure to the game, because every time the game got a little bit loose, Argentina showed that they had more enterprise and ability to get through the Springboks line of defence, and that was a fantastic play on their behalf. So I think Contepone would have said at half-time, look boys, keep doing what we're doing, it's working. We've scored 26 points against the world champions in the first half. None of the other teams that they've played so far this year in the Rugby Championship have been able to do that. And let's see what we can do. We'll roll the dice and we'll see whether we can come out with a win in this game. Now, I was thinking that surely we can't see the same pace continue in the second half, particularly with the heat and the humidity in this ground, and that's exactly what happened in the second half. In fact, it was quite a different second half to start off with, wasn't it? We went into a tight battle. We went into a bit of a kicking challenge at time. The defences were shoring up, so we weren't seeing the great line breaks that we were seeing in the first half, and the discipline came together as well. We didn't see any players being sent from the field. So we saw exactly that happen in the beginning of the second half. 43 minutes into the game, Andre Pollard got a penalty kick opportunity after good pressure from the Springboks, and we were back to a 1-point game, 26 points to 25. I've got to honestly say, at this time I thought the Springboks were going to run away with this in the second half, in terms of probably getting 10 or 15 points. I thought the bomb squad was going to be the difference in the game, like many of you had written in the comments before the game as well, and we just probably thought that the Springboks' depth of talent that they were going to bring into this game was going to make the difference. The one thing we were probably underestimating was the spirit of this Los Pumas team. They are absolutely fantastic, and I said in my pre-game video where I said I think they really believe they can win this game. They've been doing extremely well in second halves of games. being able to take away from the other team in terms of scoring tries like they did against New Zealand in Wellington and against Australia in that second test match, and they've been able to hold in tight games as well. So that was probably something I underestimated in looking at Argentina in the second half. I just thought the Springboks were going to have too much for them. So that in the next few minutes we saw that change that we were all expecting. Handré Pollard went off and we saw Manny Lebok coming on. And a lot of people were excited to see what would happen with Manny Lebok, not only from his penalty kicking opportunities, but also his general play. We all know how special he is when he's on song, and he makes some miraculous passes and runs that can change a game. So were we going to see that Manny Lebok today, or we were going to see a Manny Lebok that was going to struggle? Well, he started off really well. He was able to make some good runs. His distribution was good. A few minutes later, he got a penalty kick opportunity, which he took, and that put the Springboks in the lead of the game again. And they went out to 28 points to 26. Now, this is where I thought the Springboks were probably going to be able to control the game. We had about 25 minutes left. They were on top of the scoreboard, and with the bomb squad starting to come on, I could see that we were going to see some pressure from the Springboks through the structural play. Eben Etzebeth had come on for his 127th cap. Round of applause from me. Absolute legend of the game. Been watching his career since day one, and he's an absolutely fantastic player, great ambassador for the game. And you could see already when he came on, he disrupted the line out for the Argentinians, and he's just all class as Etzebeth. Brilliant to see him coming on the field again in this game. Now, the pressure was starting to tell in this game. It was really interesting. We had such an open, free-flowing game in the first half, and it all started getting a little bit tight and structural in the second half. And just before we got to the 20-minute mark to go in the game, we saw Argentina having another opportunity. It was Albinos with a penalty kick, and he missed it. And you could see the pressure was starting to tell on these boys. But also the conditions, once again, were having a toll. And I think when these kickers were standing up to kick the ball, they were really out of breath, and they had to concentrate a little bit more. But with Albinos missing that particular kick, it was now a question of how many more chances were we going to see, and were we going to see the bomb squad who had started to come on, were they really going to be able to make a difference in this game? The likes of Vincent Koch was on, Lowe was on, Quagga Smith was there, Etzebeth, as I had mentioned, Steenkamp had come on as well, and Jan Hendrik Wessels, and he made a couple of really good busting runs when he got hold of the ball. He's a massive hooker, this guy, and he was doing some damage when he came on. So we moved into the last 20 minutes of the game, and this is where it was all going to be decided. The first thing that happened was Manny Lebok botched a kick for touch, gave Argentina the opportunity to run the ball back, and that was the first sign we saw of pressure really telling on both sides. It was going to be telling as we went a little bit deeper into the game as well. And then between the 66th minute and the 69th minute, we saw a little bit of brilliance from Albinos. We saw him make a really good break for Argentina. He got through the South African defence, and if he had a couple of more support players, they would have scored a try, but they weren't able to on that occasion. But a minute or so later, he got another penalty opportunity. He got this one over. It put Argentina back into the lead. We had a 1-point game. It was 29 to 28. And we had about 11 minutes left in the game. So this was now a question of whether or not the bomb squad was going to be able to make the difference for South Africa to be able to get a try or get into a position where they could get a penalty kick, or were Argentina going to be able to miraculously hold on to win this game? It was getting really, really intense and exciting, that's for sure. Now, one thing Manny Lebok was doing really well was he put up a couple of contestable kicks in that last 10 minutes or so, and they were very contestable, and it helped South Africa get possession of the ball. The problem for the Springboks was they weren't able to do much with that ball, and this is because the Argentinian reserves that had come on were doing their job. I'd mentioned about it in the pre-game video, how Contaponi had played around with his bench for this game, and we saw the likes of Petit and we saw Juan Martin Gonzalez coming on for Argentina, and they were really, really making a difference. We surprisingly saw Pablo Matera go off, though I was a little bit shocked by that one. And unfortunately, Marcos Kremer picked up an injury as well, and he limped off under the support of a couple of medical officers as well. I thought that was going to really damage Argentina in the last couple of minutes of this game. We saw Bertrand go off and we saw Garcia come on as far as the halfback. He seemed to do very well. And Santiago Carreras came on for his 50th cap as well. And he did a couple of really solid things, both in attack and in defence. He was very, very big in defence. If you saw his jersey at the end of the game, he had a lot of blood over it. He really put himself on the line on a couple of occasions, tackling the South Africans and making sure they weren't going through. So I think one of the things that was pivotal in this game was the performance of the Argentinian bench. I think they really stood up and they put in some really good defensive hits, keeping the South Africans out in that last few minutes. But South Africa did get the opportunity, and it was thanks to their bomb squad and their forwards that they got close enough down into the Argentinian 22. They got a penalty opportunity right in front, and it was that man, Manie Libbok, who was going to kick the goal to win the game for South Africa. Or was he? No, he wasn't. And unfortunately for Libbok, the pressure was a little bit too much, I think. He pushed it wide to the left, and South Africa missed the opportunity to win the game on that particular occasion. However, the clock wasn't finished yet, and they still had an opportunity to come back at the Argentinians. And we saw it in the last couple of seconds of the game. The South Africans controlled the ball. They went through multi-phases. They were starting deep from inside their own half, but they did start to come down towards the Argentinian territory and putting pressure on. The Argentinians, though, were standing up and doing some big hits on the South Africans. They were trying to force them into that mistake that would end the game. And sooner or later, it was going to happen, and it did. The Argentinians ended up getting a free kick from one of the rucks that developed in the last second of the game, and all they had to do was take the tap kick and then kick the ball into touch, and they had a historic win against the South African Springboks in Argentina. It was a fantastic game of rugby. It took me back to those Rugby World Cup games last year in the knockout series, where we saw South Africa on those occasions winning these really tight games by 1 or 2 points. This time they lost this one by 1 point, but it's kudos to Argentina. They played absolutely fantastic, not only in this game, but throughout this Rugby Championship in total. And I think what Felipe Contepomi is doing now, as he's taken over from Michael Cheika, is taking this Argentinian team to another level. They've got a lot of self-belief. They're playing a very expansive game of rugby, and we've now seen them go back-to-back against Australia and against South Africa to win these two big games. You know, I've said in my previous videos, if Argentina can sort out their consistency and win against the top teams on a regular basis, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in World Rugby. We saw it yesterday in a tight match where they lost the lead early on. They were able to fight their way back into the game. They took the lead by half-time, and then they managed it through very good bench management, also through very good structural defense and discipline. We didn't see an Argentinian yellow card yesterday, which could have made a huge difference to this game, but they kept themselves under control, and they did give away a penalty that was within kicking distance, which South Africa unfortunately missed. But that's what happens in these tight encounters, and hats off to Argentina. I'm really thrilled for them. I think it's good for World Rugby. It's good for South American rugby. It's good for rugby over here in the Americas, and this is going to really put a lot of inspiration into some of the other nations in this part of the world, that they can do and replicate what Argentina are now doing on a global level. I just think it's fantastic for the game of rugby. Now, many of you South Africans in the comments were saying that you were expecting that Argentina might win this game yesterday, but I think deep down you were hoping that South Africa were going to win it. I thought it was always going to be a tight contest, and I called it in terms of I thought that Argentina had a belief to win this game, but I did think South Africa's bomb squad was going to make the difference in the last 20 minutes. They didn't make the difference, and they definitely didn't get over top of Argentina in the way that I was expecting them to do it. Now let's have a look at the South Africa selections and talk a little bit about that. What did we see that was good? Well, first of all, my eyes were caught by the performance of Eben Etzebeth when he came on. Thought he made a big difference in the line-out. He also brought that leadership that he brings into this team, which I thought was missing until he came on. So for all of those people that have been talking about Salman Morat, I think I agree with you on this occasion. I didn't see the kind of leadership on the field until Etzebeth came on that I was expecting to see from the Springboks team. So that's something that needs to be looked at. And of course, when Siya Kolisi is not playing in this team, we do see a different leadership structure. Andre Pollard did exactly the job he was asked for in the beginning of this game. He controlled the game. He ran the ball as well. We saw him put Rassie away. We saw him also playing second man out and also creating lots of opportunities for South Africa. So I think Rassie's strategy in starting Andre Pollard was exactly right. He did everything he was asked of him, controlling the game in that first part of the game. But then things went awry when we started to see Argentina come back into the game. Ruan Norkia, I thought, played very well. That guy's got a huge engine. He goes all day. He was one of the standouts for the Springboks yesterday. I thought Malcolm Marx started off pretty well, but faded a little bit as the game went on. And as I said, I don't think the Springboks ended up dominating the scrums as the game went on. They had domination in the beginning, but I thought the Argentinians worked out a good plan on how to be able to counteract the Springboks pack. Another area that I was really interested in watching before the game started was the loose forwards. I talked about that in my pre-game video. The Ben Jason Dixons, the Marco van Staden, and also the Jasper Wiese for South Africa. I thought that Marco van Staden started the game really well. We saw him do a couple of really good steals in the first 30 minutes of this game. Ben Jason Dixon did a couple of good things, and Jasper Wiese, well, didn't see a lot of him in the game making a huge difference. So there's a question mark over the performance of those three. But they were up against a very good loose trio from Argentina, and we should never sell the opposition short in a game of rugby, because we saw Marcos Crema, Pablo Matera and Oviedo doing some really good things for Argentina, and they were really good in the breakdown and creating that opportunity for Bertrand to get the ball out to Albinos and for Argentina to start spreading that ball really, really wide. So hats off to Argentina in the loose forward battle. I think they did a better job there, and that's something that South Africa will probably and definitely will look at for the next game in Nelspruit. Talk about the South African backline. Well, in the beginning of the game, they did exactly what they were asked for. Rassie got through, scored a great try. Jesse Creel got through, scored a great try. We saw Pollard doing good things. Lucano Arm was running all over the place, creating diversions, setting up players outside. They were doing really well. Mpimpi had a couple of really good runs in the first 20 or 30 minutes of the game, as did Ardensa until he got sent off. And then things changed. It was the momentum swing that came in from the Argentinians. And this is where I saw the South African defensive line not being as effective. Damian Deolandi and Jesse Creel in the defence for South Africa is immense. And now I think we saw it yesterday for the first time about how Argentina were able to create those opportunities. Choco, Barras and Sinti were able to penetrate the South African defensive line and get the ball out wide. And we saw the Lucies running on the wings. Pablo Matera scoring that try wide out for Argentina. So that's going to be an area I think we're definitely going to see a change in. Of course, we're going to see Damian Deolandi back in for the next game with that pairing with Jesse Creel, because that combination seems to work. I'm not giving Lucano Am a hard time here. I just think he hasn't had enough games to get that combination in defence working, and that's something that we saw as a result of yesterday's game, I think. Rassie also at fullback. Where was he when the Argentinians were on their attacking lines and scoring these tries? He was having to make decisions because of that imbalance in the Springboks defence, and he was getting caught out wide in those decision making. He can't tackle three men at once, so he was absolutely in a no man's land when it came to Ardensa being off the field and Rassie having to cover two people there. You can't blame him too much for that. He had to make a decision on who he was going to go for. But looking at Argentina, I've got so much praise for this team because I think they're doing really, really well. One area they need to look at is their locking. I think they've got an issue there. They need some more depth in their locks to start off the game. Rubiolo did pretty well, I think, but it was a masterstroke from Felipe Contaponi in terms of keeping his bench the way that he did to bring on later in the game. I think it really made a big difference in this game. It was probably one of those things that went unnoticed a little bit in the game, but I think when you look back at the game, if you watch it again, take particular note in the last 30 minutes and how those players that came on for Argentina really helped to secure the win for them and keeping the bomb squad under control as much as they possibly could. I'm not saying the bomb squad didn't do anything. They made a couple of good runs, but we didn't see Quagga Smith at his brilliant best yesterday, did we? And we didn't see the impact that some of those other players make when they come on, when the forwards go to that other level for South Africa. I don't think that happened yesterday, and it allowed Argentina to bring in a stronger defence pattern and hold out South Africa until the end of that game. I think what Contepone's doing with this team is brilliant. I'm really enthusiastic about their way forward. Are they going to beat South Africa in South Africa next time out? No, I don't think they are, but I tell you what, they're going to go there with a hell of a lot of belief. And just like Australia are going to go to Wellington with a lot of belief next weekend, I think that's what we've seen come out of the Rugby Championship this weekend, which is brilliant for international rugby competition. We've seen Australia get their mojo back. They're going to go to New Zealand believing they can beat the All Blacks next weekend, and Argentina are going to throw everything at South Africa in South Africa. They've got nothing to lose in this game, and that's where this Argentina team can be very, very dangerous. I love this game. I love the game in terms of the result for World Rugby, for Argentina Rugby. I love the result for South Africa, because also Rassie, I've got to applaud the guy once again, because with all those changes, he did exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to find out how those players respond under pressure against a really good team, and he knows Argentina's a really good team. So I applaud Rassie. I wish Razor Robertson would learn from Rassie and look at what he's doing, because even though South Africa lost yesterday, Rassie has got a lot of answers to a lot of questions. There might have been questions over Mani Lebok. Well, he's got an answer now. There might have been questions over Salman Morat. Well, he's got an answer now. There might have been questions over Ruan Norkia. Well, he's got an answer now. All these things that came out of the game, I think it's brilliant for South Africa as they move forward. So I think in the game next weekend, we're going to see those changes, because Rassie's going to go back to what he knows best in making sure he gets a win. And then he's going to build this squad up to go for their Northern Tour at the end of the year. So I think South Africa is still on track. Just one loss doesn't count it out for me. It was a brilliant game of rugby. Argentina deserved to win it. Hats off to them. Vamos Los Pumas. Fantastic stuff. And I hope you enjoyed the game as much as I did. Now let me know in the comments what you thought about it. I'm expecting to hear all kinds of things from both sides, and also the neutrals as well. Now, when you come to this channel and watch my videos, all I want you to do is engage in the comments. There's a ton of comments that I don't agree with, and there's a lot of you that don't agree with my comments, and that's exactly what I want in this channel. We're rugby fans at the end of the day. We don't know much at all in terms of compared to the coaches and everything else, but we are entitled to an opinion, and that's what I love reading on this channel. So please put your comments in here about what you think about these games, about what I said. If you disagree with me, tell me in a respectful way. I can take it. I'm a big man, and I expect you to do that. I don't want people just agreeing with me on this channel. I want to hear everybody's point of view. That's why I started this channel as well. Now, if you want to hang around and be part of this community, hit one of these 5 things up and help to support my channel. I'd be really, really appreciative of that. Hit the subscribe button, stick around, because there's plenty more rugby coming here on Inside Rugby with Mark. Okay, I'm going to go and have a cool drink and calm down. I got really pumped up about this game. I absolutely love the rugby this weekend. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's great to see the performances of Australia and Argentina. I think it's brilliant for World Rugby, and I can't wait for next weekend, because it's going to be super exciting again. But I'm going to be back with plenty more content before then, so make sure you stick around for that. Have a fantastic day no matter where you are in the world. Stay safe and stay well. Keep enjoying your beautiful game of rugby, and I'll see you again really soon right here on Inside Rugby with Mark. Until next time, adios from beautiful Mexico. See you everyone. Bye bye.